That paladin looks awfully familiar. How strange. Why are there so many chanters? Kill the chanters, but they just keep coming and they don't stop 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 coming and they don't stop. Welcome back to the Mentor Roulette grind. This time, I started my session noticing that Healer was in need, and ultimately ended up playing Scholar the entire session. Once again, for the majority of the session, it seems like the concept known as 8-man content was forgotten entirely. But on the bright side, we did get quite some variety in what dungeons we got, right? For Duty 1, we start with a nice and easy Praetorium. Yeah, not much happened here. In fact, most of the duty I was talking on the community Discord server, link in the description, about Scholar, job gauges, and imagining what movesets Final Fantasy XIV jobs would have if they were Pokemon. Warrior would definitely have Drain Punch, or maybe some ability that made their attacks heal them. How would you kit out a job as a Pokemon? What moves, what ability, what typing, maybe even what kind of stats? Anyway, for Duty 2, we went to Sunken Temple of Qarn hard, and I noticed a familiar name. If you watched episode 7 of this series, you may recall a certain Go tank in Garuda Extreme. Now that I'm no longer distracted by dealing with my own side of an extreme encounter, and instead looking at a rather mundane duty, I can actually see how this person plays. To start, they often randomly seem to lead with Prominence instead of Total Eclipse, and typically pulled enemies initially with Circle of Scorn. Defensive cooldowns were also somewhat rare. I will get back to this momentarily. On the first boss, we had this quicksand mechanic, and while yes, I could absolutely have saved our tank with rescue, I decided that maybe it was for the best that they learn how punishing that mechanic is, so I just let it happen. It did seem to wake them up a bit and focus a bit more, but I can't say for certain. I do think it is important to at least respect boss mechanics if you aren't sure, instead of just ignoring them, especially if you see everyone else run away. Shortly after the first boss, we also had this bigger AoE pull, which got a little weird. The tank used a defensive cooldown as they pulled, and then nothing while tanking everything. I let them know to use more defensive cooldowns if they want to pull like that, only for them to blow multiple cooldowns to tank an easily avoidable attack on the following pull. Finally, on the last boss, things got a bit more sketchy than they needed to because of a bit of a lack of dodging, leading to our tank actually getting mummified. Naturally, it wasn't that hard of a duty, but it got a lot more awkward than it needed to be. I also want to mention that every single time one of the gems dropped from mobs, at least our tank had already ran off before the item even had dropped, so I wonder what would have happened if all 4 players were as attentive as them. Why does the door not work? For Duty 3, we land in the Aetherochemical Research Facility, or ARF for short. Overall, the duty went just fine. Some of the bosses in this duty are a bit strange or difficult though, so let's go over that for a bit. On the second boss, when it turns into this weird army boy or tree thing, it will root someone and then show this 2 swirling orb marker. This means it is a sort of number-sensitive stack marker. 2 orbs means you need exactly 2 players in the marker, which includes the rooted person. If only 1 person stands in it, they take a ridiculous amount of damage. If more than 2 players stand in it, they all take a ridiculous amount of damage. And if exactly 2 players stand in it, nothing happens and you're fine. What went wrong here is that the bard happened to accidentally press Repelling Shot right as the mechanic resolved. A lot of players get this mechanic entirely wrong, which is understandable. A fun little trivia tidbit about it is also that the creatures this boss switches between are callbacks to bosses from the Coils of Bahamut. And the tree thing in the raid version roots 2 different players and gives one a 3-orb swirly and one a 2-orb swirly, which indeed means they require 3 and 2 players. Despite the damage of the orb mechanic in ARF, though, this fight is actually soloable by a warrior. The final boss also has a rather difficult mechanic, with Asian Prime summoning these sets of fire and ice orbs. For anyone that has not done ARF in the past year or so, yeah, they reworked it. The fire orbs explode in large circle AoEs, while the ice orbs explode in donut AoEs. When the boss summons a set of 6 orbs, it summons them in such a pattern where either the middle orbs explode first, or the outer orbs explode first in sets. This means that either you have to stand in the center, then sprint out, or stand on the edge and then sprint in to dodge all the damage. However, failing that, getting hit by one of the attacks, only one, is survivable. So if latency or otherwise prevents you from moving on time, standing in the safe spot for the outer orbs is survivable, as that means you only get hit by the inner orb explosion. This mechanic is, of course, mainly brutal due to the short reaction time to dodge on time. I did try to help my team to understand where to stand, but despite everything, we did beat it first try, with a rather long recovery period. At one point, I was even super low on MP and running out of resources. But hey, as long as the team learned something, that's what really matters. For Duty 4, we went to Amdapor Keep hard, and it seems the Red Mage was a first timer. On the first boss, we had a bit of an awkward situation. Personally, I remembered that the statues were important, but I wasn't sure what for. So first, the beam mechanic targets the Red Mage, which you are supposed to block with the statues. Then the boss targets me with a dash attack, which seems to have the bonus property of being able to destroy the statues, which you don't want. Fortunately, there are plenty of statues to go around. Now, the beam applies both vulnerability stacks and the infirmary debuff, which reduces healing received, so I healed the Red Mage up the first time. The second time though, I sort of give up the possibility of saving them in favor of preserving some resources. Given I wasn't 100% sure on the mechanics myself, I decided to wait until after the fight to go over the beam mechanic thing when I was sure. In summary, when the boss targets you with a beam, run behind a statue, so he hits that instead. The second boss has this mechanic where it becomes invisible. The way you deal with it is killing this orb and then running over where the boss is standing, so the burst from the buff you receive reveals the boss. After the second boss, there's this survival section where we discovered that apparently there's a cleave that hurts a lot. No fear, I could quickly run back. Extremely quickly, in fact. And finally, on the final boss, he sometimes put down these spinning scythes, which the DPS players didn't quite seem as scared of as they should. These scythes just grind through your HP bar if you stay in them, so do make sure to step out and away when you see them. For Duty 5, we have a Guildhest stinging back, and oh my pink primal small guy, why are there so many chanters? Duty says kill the chanters, they heal the boss, and then they just have like 50 of them waiting in the wings or what? There's so many that I couldn't help but laugh. It was so ridiculous. I mean, look at this, they just keep coming. For Duty 6, we went to 1000 Maws of Toto-Rak. The tank and Arcanist were legitimately like level 27, leveling up to 28 throughout the duty. The tank was pulling big despite this, which was nice, but I did remind them to use a defensive cooldown when pulling like that. While Rampart was used effectively and efficiently, I did not get the impression that Zhong here realized Reprisal also could function as a defensive cooldown in these situations. Arm's Length could have worked too, but let's not forget that Arm's Length is a level 32 action, and Zhong being legitimately only level 28 means they did not have this. We pushed through the duty rather fast and things went fine, although some pulls got a bit scary when Rampart was on cooldown. For Duty 7, we go to Tam-tara Deepcroft hard. Some of you may remember my run with 3 first-timers. Well, this time we either had 3 knowers or at least 3 players that knew what to do and listened. This was possibly the smoothest run of Tam-tara hard of my life. Check this out. Leading up to the first boss, the bard asked for a refresher because they weren't sure, so I gave the rundown. So, on the first boss, the easiest way to beat it is to simply stack in the middle, single target the boss and ignore everything else. If you do, the zombies will die to the spread marker. And the spread marker doesn't hurt that much, so the healer can handle it. It is that easy. On the second boss, I also gave a summary, although there it seemed like everyone knew it already. Intercept the orbs to protect the Lalafell in the center. If you don't do it fast, the orbs will just explode and also hit the Lalafell, so it has to be fast. Take note here of how few orbs are even allowed to move at all. An absolutely amazing performance by everyone. And finally on the last boss, which typically presents far less problems because you just need to kill the ads and not stand in the center, no one even touched the center, and most everyone participated and helped in killing ads. Just an absolutely amazingly good run. For Duty 8, we land in Lunar Subterrane, and I think maybe the tank is a first timer? Whatever on that though, what stood out far more to me was that the dancer felt a bit off. Weird cooldown usages, often hanging out over in Narnia looking for Aslan, even when the rest of us are dealing with stack markers and such. On the final boss, I also noticed I was beating the dancer on enmity, which, while not the best indicator since healing generates some enmity, it doesn't generate that much. This is, of course, all fine and all, it just confused me, because their gear was very good, so they had been level 90 for a long time, so I expected a bit more, I guess. It didn't get in the way of clearing, of course. For Duty 9, we go to the Praetorium, again, where we just go through and clear, of course. I guess a Paladin Pokemon could straight up just be a special attacker Aegislash build. King's Shield, Flash Cannon, Shadow Ball, Shadow Sneak with the Stance Change ability. The special attacks representing the Magic Burst and Shadow Sneak functioning as the physical option. But if we were to think out of the box, a Paladin would probably be a Steel Fairy type and not a Steel Ghost type, since Fairy kind of works as the light type. So Shadow Sneak could be replaced with Bullet Punch and Shadow Ball with Moonblast. Continuing that, Black Mage would probably be a Fire Electric type with Flamethrower, Fire Blast, Thunderbolt or Thunder, and Ice Beam or Blizzard. And finally probably some sort of setup move, I imagine Nasty Plot, but maybe Quiver Dance so that it can represent also getting speed boosts from ley lines. I could also imagine an ability like Adaptability that just further boosts the same type attack bonus, which would make fire and electric moves stronger, which also represents how the ice spells Black Mage has, typically are the weaker ones. Anyway, do you have any ideas? I'm just thinking out loud a bit because Praetorium, you know? Nearly 30 minutes of this and nothing really interesting happened, so I have to make up my own fun. After that, I actually took a break because a stream was coming up, so Duty 10 happens around 6 hours later, where we get Wreath of Snakes, but just the normal version. Overall, the duty went really well, with just enough going on to make things interesting. In fact, a particular thing I noticed was that I felt I had very good teamwork with my co-healer, despite no communication. A particular mechanic that just kept going a bit weird was this one with the wheels. It felt like one of the players targeted by the side wheels always wanted to stand in the stack too, which made things a bit awkward. Another thing is that this boss actually has a blue circle knockback effect, but it seems to predate the blue circle indicator, I guess. Because here it is indicated with a reddish-orange circle and a proper knockback indicator. Anyway, a reminder that standing in the circle kills you, so don't do that. This boss could also do with an update with one of those multiple stack markers, since his double stack attack does not indicate this at all. With that said, another good set of duties, another step in the Mentor Roulette grind done. I hope you found it entertaining. By the way, this set was done on a Tuesday afternoon, so it appears that, at least for healers, it doesn't serve you extremes all the time like it did for tank for me a few weeks ago. Now, that is all for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you would like to support me and my channel more directly, you can become a member like these wonderful people here. You can also alternatively support me through Ko-Fi, link in the description. You can also support the channel by letting the YouTube algorithm know by liking the video, leaving a comment, subscribing, sharing, and hitting the bell to get notified when next I post a video. Fun fact, before ARF got reworked, its most dangerous mechanics summoned a few void portals that you had to enter at a specific time. The boss would cast Universal Manipulation, which essentially put every single debuff under the sun on you, unless you were hiding in the portal. But you may recall other duties with this kind of mechanic where you have to step into a thingy in time. It usually takes like 40 years before you actually are counted as inside. which meant people often got caught because they didn't go early enough, even though they knew to do it.